the first thing I'd really like to do is acknowledge that this meeting from which myself and Petrina are coming from is held on the traditional lands of the Noongar people. And I wish to pay my respects to that culture and what they bring to our overall well-being as Australians. So I'm going to, at this point, say thank you very much for coming along to this webinar, and I will, at this point, hand over to Petrina, who will be presenting to you broadening talent pools and retaining great people with a values-based approach.
Cool. Thanks very much, Susie. Hopefully everyone can hear me. And is the slideshow up on the screen nicely? Beautiful. It's always very tricky with technology and my own skill set. So thanks everyone for joining. We thought we spoke about this topic at the HR Leadership Summit in WA a few weeks ago, and we had a lot of great feedback from the HR professionals that were there at the time. So we thought we'd throw it out to the world of LinkedIn and see who else would like to listen in. So we're hoping that you guys will be able to get a lot of great information from the presentation. My name's Petrina Scott, and I'm the Director of Judgment Index Australia. I also work for the ORS Group, which is a national allied health organisation employing over 500 staff. I'm the National Business Development and Retention Manager for that organisation as well. So what we thought we'd start with is talking about change brings opportunity. Now, we all know we're in a new environment in the world of work at the moment. People are struggling to find staff. We've got people moving from company to company continuously, and it's tough out there if you're an employer or a HR professional. So we really want to challenge the thinking over the next sort of 25 minutes or so as to how this current situation could perhaps be an opportunity for your company. And just ways that you can broaden your own talent pools and where you're looking for staff, and also how you can retain the great staff that you already have within your organisation as well. Now, Judgment Index Australia, ways that we help people to look at their recruitment and keep their great people is through recruiting. So, identifying your great people is the starting point. Developing, strengthening your team so that they stay with you, and then leading well and leading with strategy to inspire your people as well. So, if we start with recruitment, I might go back to how I actually got involved in Judgment Index in the first place. So, at the time, it was probably, I don't even know how long ago it was. I was a state manager, and it was working for a large employment services company, and we had high turnover at the time. I was spending a lot of time recruiting, probably 2 to 3 days every week was interviews, and I looking through resumes and trying to find the right people to fit our organisation. I was trying to do it really well. I enjoyed our culture, but our turnover was about 60%, which sounds absolutely horrific. HR did a great job at thinking outside the square, and they engaged Judgment Index as part of their recruitment process. So, what they were doing was assessing all the applicants prior to interview. They were identifying the different values and behaviours that they were looking for within the role. And employment services is quite a unique industry, whereas you've got a lot of people wanting to help others, which was a definite skill set that we needed. But we also needed a lot of resilience, and we needed people to be able to have some strong sales skills, because you're really trying to convince people who are currently unemployed that they have the capacity to go back to work. And a lot of the clients didn't intend to be an employment services client. They weren't enthusiastic, some of them weren't enthusiastic about turning up for the first appointment. So we really needed to have a workforce that could really work with a difficult cohort of clients and get some results, because it was government tenders. We needed a certain level of results to retain our contracts. So what we did was we HR were assessing people prior to the interview. And what I noticed from that was that my recruitment changed from 2 to 3 days a week to 2 to 3 interviews per week. The people that were turning up, I saw them come through the door and sat down with them and immediately could understand that they would fit within the industry. Our turnover over a 12-month period reduced by 20%, which made everything a lot more enjoyable. And they were also able to adequately assess compatibility. So that what the HR team did was they assessed the high performers within the organisation, and they knew the types of behaviours and values that would work in the role. They also identified key criteria that actually had a 100% turnover rate. So in my wisdom, I interviewed people prior to doing the assessment on them, and I felt like they were going to be a great fit. I'd approach the CEO and say, I know better than the assessment. Let's hire. Can I give it a go? And the CEO was great at saying, yep, sure, give it a go. After hiring a number of those people, they actually had a look, and everyone that had a specific criteria with their assessment had 100% turnover. Either they left or they had to be let go for various reasons. So just knowing that information, we were able to be a lot more proactive in who we were hiring. We were given specific interview questions for each of those applicants that were targeted to their values and behaviours, so that we could quiz them a little bit more and find out whether they were going to be suitable and be able to be successful within the role. As a side effect, we actually, HR did a bit of a research project, and noticed that everyone that was hired through using the Judgment Index assessment had zero workers' compensation claims, and which was interesting because the type of work hadn't changed. It was still a very stressful environment. It was still quite a difficult work environment and work role to do. But the conversations around resilience and being able to understand who's coming in and whether they're going to be able to cope with the role, resulted in zero workers' compensation claims. So our compensation manager at the time was able to flip her role and focus proactively on building well-being and looking at different programs that they could do to help um, help people be successful. So a bit of a different market that we have at the moment. We've got Albany McDonald's offering $1,000 signing on bonus. I'm pretty sure I showed my teenager this slide and he was pretty keen. He's like, oh, $1,000 just for signing a contract. That sounds great. Not sure how successful that's going to be, possibly great. We then have Decuba offering no resume interviews vouchers to get people in. I noticed that they've actually changed some of their recruitment strategies now as well, and basically saying just go into a store. You don't even need a resume. Have a chat to one of the staff members, and they've got a direct number that they call HR as soon as someone walks into the store. So they're actually able to access people in every shopping centre that there's a Decuba store. Um, one of the things that I've felt strongly about and have done a lot of work with is looking at partnering with employment programs. Now, the Hospitality Disability Network was set up on the back of the Crownability program, which was designed specifically to create a disability friendly workplace environment, but also disability confident managers. So we were skilling up managers, we were helping them identify people with disabilities who would be successful in existing roles. We weren't tailoring the roles in particular, but we were redefining roles where we could, but also changing some of the recruitment process. So it wasn't knocking out people that might have had gaps in their employment history. I think a lot of the automated HR processes now tend to screen out people that might have some employment gaps, whereas with a strong employment program and with partnerships, you can actually help people be successful even with some employment gaps. The Hospitality Disability Network was designed to help other hospitality companies replicate what Crownability was able to do. And I think in the first few years of Crownability across the Perth and Melbourne locations, there was about 300 people with disabilities that were hired through the program. And one of the things that also happened was that existing staff felt comfortable advising the HR team and their managers of barriers that they might actually have within their workplace that could be a disability or a medical condition that was going to impact them in the role. And they actually felt comfortable and confident to speak up about it, which I thought was a really great side effect of having a strong partnership with a disability program. It actually helped others within the company who had disabilities or medical conditions speak up, which, yeah, great side effect. Carers WA, I'm working with them at the moment on carers who have been caring for family members return to the workforce. So either their caring role's finished or their lifestyle has changed in such a way that they feel that employment is going to be suitable. And we do the judgment index for all the carers coming through that program as well. And they get to identify some of their really great strengths, values, behaviours that are really critical in the workforce that carers have that that employers really value as well. Job Access is a free program by the federal government that any employer can call, and they can help connect you with partners to develop your own disability employment program, or help you support people who might be at risk of losing their job through disability or illness or medical condition, and help you develop some strategies to retain them. Having a look at ex-ADF staff, Working Spirit is the national organisation to contact there. And if you think about some of the skills that ex-Australian Defence Force staff will have, it's critical. So even in things like logistics or warehouse or thinking outside the square, stress and resilience is really strong with that cohort. The other one, which is an interesting one, and I don't think it's accessed enough, is looking at vocational rehabilitation programs. So I'm not sure who in the room is aware, but you can actually get someone who's had a workplace injury and had a workers' compensation claim, and they have allied health staff working with them to help ensure they're successful moving forward. But you get a 3-month period, a work trial. So they can work for you for 3 months full time, all paid by the insurer. And at the end of the 3 months, ideally, you've trained this person up and you've got to know them really well and they're being successful. At that point, you can take them on as an employee. All their insurances are covered for that 3-month period as well. And I just think that's, particularly in this working environment and when we are struggling for staff, having a look outside the box at programs like that is really helpful. And these are some of the qualities and behaviours that Judgment Index actually measure. In particular with the carers program as well, when people have workplace gaps or gaps in their work history, being able to help them understand that their problem solving skills are actually better than the national average in carers. Their people skills are really strong. They're trustworthy. They've got good moral clarity. So being able to assess your staff coming in as to whether they're going to do the right thing when no one's watching. When you're looking at alternative employment programs, being able to understand people's values and behaviours is just critical. So when we talk about recruitment, so just to recap some of the things that you might want to implement: values-based interviewing, so ensuring you have specific questions around the values that you're looking for. Thinking outside the box, can you partner with organisations to employ targeted groups? And understanding your people. Don't underestimate the soft skills when you're recruiting. So if we're moving on to developing, so strengthening your team, and when we talk about development, we're really talking about keeping your developing your people so that you retain them. Now, developing and offering development opportunities for your team will ensure they're more likely to stay with you, because if they don't get development from you, they're going to end up going elsewhere. Gallup talks about the 5 essential elements of well-being. So development and well-being definitely go hand in hand. And at this point in time, people are actually expecting a lot more of their employer as well. The well-being aspect, we've got a lot of young people coming through into the workforce, and they've all been told how wonderful they are all through childhood and all through school, and they turn up to the workforce and they expect work to be able to offer value to their lives. And I think that's starting to flow through to other generations as well. We want workplace to be a place where we fit in and it adds value to our lives in general. So Gallup looked at the 5 essential elements of well-being, and he's got career, so enjoying what you do; social, having opportunity to build friendships; financial, being able to afford to a basic level of living; physical well-being, so having the energy to do the things that you do; and community well-being, um, enjoying where you live. So, but I think as an employer, so if we've got HR professionals or employers in the room, are you offering support for your employees to all 5 areas of well-being, or are you just tapping into the one? We have a lot of employers who will do EAP programs. They might have fruit in the workplace, maybe have massages. That's always a good one for employers to offer. But can you expand on that to the 5? So if we have a look at financial well-being at the moment, I'm sure everyone in the room is watching the RBA increase the interest rates. It seems really fast at the moment, but your employees are as well. So is there a possibility where they're quite happy in their workplace, but because of financial need, they're going to need to look elsewhere to an employer that might offer more money, or they might offer better um, better benefits. So financial well-being, is there an opportunity to offer your staff access to a financial counselor, someone to help assess their finances as an employer, like that genuine desire to help people authentically? And I think that's a massive opportunity at the moment for employers who want to retain their staff to have a look at how authentic are we being in wanting to develop and support our employees' well-being. So, scary stat now. So 85% of employees are either not engaged or actively disengaged at work. Not sure how many people have come across TikTok, but there's some TikToks happening at the moment where they're talking about quiet quitting. And they're a really good back and forth between an employee, probably a millennial, and her manager. And they're talking about how quiet quitting. So quietly not just reaching your KPIs, maybe just leaving on time, like doing the things that you have to do to get by, but not doing extra. And I think it's a really interesting concept at the moment, and I think it's a bit scary for employers. One thing that we're doing is helping companies. We've got an engagement assessment, and what companies are actually getting us to do is assessing different sites or offices or the whole company as a general, and we can actually see the percentage of people who are actually engaged and who's actively engaged. So who are the ones within an organization who might be turning up to work every day, but while they're there, they're a negative influence, and they're not supportive of the company's goals and values and where it's actually heading. And it's critical information to be able to use, particularly in this environment where you need to keep your people, because finding new people is incredibly difficult. So having a look at the engagement levels of your team is a really good opportunity at the moment. This is a personal narrative report, and it's something that some of our larger organisations that we work with use, and it's done at the prior to hiring. And then at the 6-month mark, once someone's settled in, they get given a personal narrative report. And it's all about well-being and developing their self, because we know that issues outside the workplace impact inside the workplace. Um, and there's data that we've been using for years that shows that when someone is going through something outside the workforce, so it could be or outside the workplace, so it could be a relationship breakdown, a house move, maybe financial pressures, the likelihood is that their work performance will suffer. So elements like their focus and concentration reduces, their capacity to handle stress reduces, their ability to relate with people, and work, their managers who might be struggling outside the workplace, how are they then supporting their team, and are they doing it in a way which is how you want it to be done? um, Problem solving skills, are they able to think on their feet when they've got all this outside of work stuff going on? And also someone's ability to use their intuition and identify safety concerns. It's all impacted. And these things, they're not only a risk to the person and their own well-being, but they're also a risk to the company. So what this development plan and the personal narrative report does is it helps people better understand themselves. And because well-being and development, it's a very personal journey, and it's something that employers can open the door to, but the employees need to want to do it themselves. And some of the employees will take these personal narrative and run with it straight away. Others might put it on the back burner for a few months and pick it up later. But what it's doing is it's starting the conversation, and it's opening up the opportunity for people to um, just take that self development ownership themselves. So if we summarize development, so strengthening your people, which is about retaining your people, well-being, are you considering all 5 areas of well-being to support engagement and retention with your company? Engagement, are you measuring your workforce engagement to target your retention and development strategies? Because if we have critical information, we can actually tailor our processes to it. And development, so supporting employees to develop their self. So, leadership, inspiring your people. And something that was mentioned a lot in the leadership summit the other day was skilling up the leaders and uh, actually enabling leaders to be proactive with their strategies and do a good job and be authentic. Authenticity came up a lot in the leadership summit as to leadership's changed over the last decade, and it's changing rapidly over the last few years as well. And how are we helping leaders to adapt? The old leadership style of, we tell people what to do when they turn up to work, and that's just what needs to happen. It's people aren't accepting that anymore. People want their leaders to be inspirational and supportive, and yeah, do all the things that we want in general society in the workplace. One of the companies we work with was doing was doing a major restructure within their organization, a big spill and fill. They had a lot of managers who had been promoted from within, which is it's great for values and culture. But what had happened was they had a lot of managers who had never had any formal leadership training, and might be displaying behaviours that the company was struggling to work out what to do about. So as part of their restructure, they engaged Judgment Index to do leadership profiles on all of their leaders. And what we found was that 50% of those leaders were likely to struggle with the change of the restructure, which sounds obvious. But one of the things that the company wanted was for the restructure to be as supportive as possible, I suppose. They didn't want to lose their people. They wanted to keep their people. They needed to do the restructure, but they wanted to do it um, as kindly and supportive as possible. So they found out 100% of the managers within the organization had extremely high self-criticism levels, which can be good in terms of motivation. And I'm probably my own worst enemy. I'm very self-critical. But if I was approached to say we've got a spill and fill situation and a major restructure, that self-criticism can very easily turn into negative self-talk. So we knew that about the managers prior to the restructure. 90% had low energy levels around dealing with difficult people and situations. So their resilience was going to suffer through this process as well. And 60% were finding it difficult to manage stress outside the workplace as well. So we knew that some of them had some things going on outside the workplace, and now they were going to have stuff happening inside the workplace. So we knew where we needed to focus the attention. So what happened was the restructure was announced in conjunction with a development program. So they said, we've got a restructure happening, spill and fill. However, we've got this assessment, we've got a development program happening as well, and we'll work with you to get the best result for everyone in the picture. They assessed all levels of leaders, and one thing that they did really well, the CEO was assessed, the HR managers were assessed, learning and development, and they actually shared their results with their team. So the CEO was like, look, this is my report. These are my areas for improvement. I'm going to be attending the development programs for these areas just like everyone else. And it created a lot of trust within the organization. The managers really appreciated that, and the CEO was genuine and authentic with how, like, the work that he was going to do himself. There was customized programs developed and implemented, looked at well-being as well as leadership skills. So it wasn't just about being a great leader, it was about how you were going to support yourself through this process as well. And hopefully those skills and strategies would be able to continue on in the future as well. The leaders that weren't successful in retaining roles were offered customized plans to develop. And I think that was critical for people to stay engaged with the organization as well. And the engagement worked. They retained 85% of their managers, and there was a high engagement rate throughout the process. And we had feedback, it's still happening at the moment, but we had feedback from HR the other day just saying that the quality of the conversations that she's having with people through this process have been really good. People are generally quite happy, even though it's quite a stressful situation. They feel like the company has had their back throughout the process. And data that they used to gather through the process as well was they looked at the engagement levels of different teams, sites, working areas within the company. They looked at the stress management levels of their managers and leaders and who would benefit from some support. They looked at diversity within the company, the safety and risk, who's likely to have a workplace injury or incident, and also the wellbeing levels. So they were able to use data from these different areas to proactively look at planning out their programs for the next 12 months as well. So leading with confidence. So are you engaging and developing your leaders? So identification of the leaders is critical, and supporting them to be the best leader that they possibly can be. Authentic leaders, are you engaging your people through transparent and meaningful conversations? And data-led decision making. So are you utilizing data to drive targeted programs within your organization? And yeah, so overall, so Judgment Index looks at recruitment, so identifying great people, developing and strengthening your team, and leading and inspiring your people. And hopefully you've been able to gather some skills or some ideas that you could use within your own organization to broaden your talent pools and retain your great people. So I hope everyone's enjoyed the presentation.